This is Top Accolade African News Roundup. I am Abiodun Mohammed. At least 25 people have been killed in South Sudan, officials said, after youth from two neighboring communities in the country's north clashed over a disputed borderline separating their areas. Violence is endemic in parts of South Sudan, where clashes triggered by localized disputes over grazing areas, water, cultivation grounds, and other resources often turn deadly. The country's volatile politics often helps exacerbate some of the localized disputes, fanning the violence. In the latest unrest, armed youth from the Twik community in Warrap State on the border with Sudan on Monday attacked residents of neighboring Abyei town, also on the border. An additional 12 people were killed among the Abyei residents, including 2 women and a child, Deng Ajak, a local administration official, said. Both sides disagree over where the borderline separating the two communities lies, with each claiming the other is encroaching on their land, both officials said. Nigerian authorities say the number of people killed by floods ravaging the country in recent weeks has risen to more than 500. More than 1,500 others have been wounded, while 1.4 million are displaced. Since the end of July, the West African country has been grappling with a wave of flooding affecting 31 of its 36 states, including the capital, Abuja. The floods are caused by heavy rains and release of excess waters from dams within Nigeria and a major dam in neighboring Cameroon by the authorities. Experts also partly blame the flooding on the impact of climate change. The country is hit by floods every year, but this year's disaster is the worst in more than a decade. Giving an update on the situation at a press conference on Tuesday, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Nasiru Sani Gwazo, said tens of thousands of houses and large swathes of farmland have been destroyed. The Nigerian authorities are warning that states in the central and southern parts of the country are likely to experience more floods in the coming weeks. Cases of cholera in Malawi have more than tripled in the last 2 months as authorities struggle to contain an outbreak that has killed more than 117 people so far. The UN says that cases across the country have jumped from 1,000 to more than 4,200 since August. The first case of cholera, which spreads mainly through contaminated food and water, was reported in March in southern Malawi, but the disease has now spread to 22 of Malawi's 28 districts. Experts have warned that the situation could be worsened by the onset of the rainy season in November. The government has been conducting a mass cholera vaccination in the Southern African nation, which is one of the poorest in the world. Data from the World Health Organization show that this is the worst outbreak so far this year globally. The country's cholera response plan currently has a funding gap of more than $13 million. Malawi is currently facing one of its worst economic periods and has witnessed street protests sparked by shortages in fuel, electricity, and forex, as well as drugs and medical supplies. A bronze sculpture of a West African king that was in the collection of a Rhode Island museum for more than 70 years is among 31 culturally important objects that have been returned to the Nigerian government. The sculpture, called the Head of a King, or Oba, which was held at the Rhode Island School of Design Museum, RISD, was among the objects transferred to the Nigerian National Collections during a ceremony at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. The Benin bronzes were stolen in 1897 when British colonial forces ransacked and looted the Kingdom of Benin, which is now in modern-day Nigeria. In 1897, the head of an Oba was stolen from the royal palace of Oba Ovonramen. RISD Museum Interim Director Sarah Gans Blythe said in a statement, the RISD Museum has worked with the Nigerian National Commission for Museums and Monuments to repatriate this sculpture to the people of Nigeria, where it belongs, Blythe said. The pieces that were stolen in the late 19th century included 29 that the Smithsonian Institution's Board of Regents voted in June to return to Nigeria and 1 object from the National Gallery of Art, officials said. That is the size of Top Accolade African News Roundup. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy midweek.